Good morning. Uh, I'm doing a talk today about being young and getting sober. So let's do it. Hi. So I've been asked to do a talk at a convention for young people, the Manipa convention, and I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, and because I basically I went to my first meeting when I was 21, and I didn't, it was successful for that day, but I decided that off one meeting that wasn't for me. So I stayed away until I was 26, until the 6th of May 1991, and then I went to my second meeting, which I consider my first proper meeting, and that wasn't the end of the story. I still drank in the November, on the 20th of November, so I was a little over 6 months sober. I had some information, but not much, and I started doing what I was told pretty much after 6 months in the fellowship. So yeah, that I was still 26. I was still relatively young as someone who gets sober, and I felt a lot younger than I actually was. It seems to be a common theme, this, with alcoholics. They appear to be stunted in their emotional growth, and when they put the drink down, they feel like they felt before they picked the drink up. And I understand why now, because the alcohol in an alcoholic has an opiate type effect that it says in the big book we get the feeling of ease and comfort from just a couple of drinks. Most people don't get that, alcoholics, because we are physiologically different to our fellows. It's a physical illness, as well as we metabolize alcohol differently. And once we have one or two, maybe, we go into withdrawal immediately, and that sets off the obsession, the compulsion. We can't stop ourselves once we started. I won't go into the science of this now, because I'll do another one on the science of addiction, because there's a lot of good stuff more recently. But I'll try not to. Most people are bored with it. They want to talk about feelings, and that's the top and the bottom of it. We drink to drown our sorrows, or we drink to it. There's 4 types of feelings. When I came into the fellowship, I said I had 2 types of feelings. I had drunk and shit. So the binary, my feelings. So drunk and not drunk, which not drunk I would describe as terrible. And then drunk, which was, I don't know, oblivion most of the time. And I preferred that to not drunk. But I drank basically because I liked it. I liked the feeling. I liked the feeling of not having any feelings. That was the thing. And there's a lot of research been done on, with neuroscientists and radioactive isotopes and PET scanners, and they know now that the chronic alcoholic, which is me, they react physiologically very different than social drinkers or normal people. And then you get the the mental side with it. But as a young person, when I was 21, I'd not explored my emotions at all, feelings. I'm old now, but when I came into recovery, the people who were mainly in the mutual aid groups were men over 40. In Manchester, there was a lot of Irish, Scottish people, and their level of insight into themselves wasn't great. It wasn't great, and I suspected that my alcohol was intrinsically linked to the way I felt. However, this is where the problem started, because I didn't know how I felt. So I had to go back to basics, really. I've got a grandson now who's probably more emotionally well balanced or than I was at 21 or 26. Even he knows when he's happy, sad, angry, or scared. And those four emotions are really the only ones you need to know about, because out of them stem all of the subcategories of emotions. So when I was happy, I drank because my alcoholic mind told me this will make it even better. So it's great now, but a drink on top of this will make it all even better. Euphoric, happy, sad. When I'm sad, this will block out the emotions and I won't feel sad anymore. So I did that probably from my first drink. My first proper drink was when my mum died, and it was the day after, and me and my sisters we all got drunk and drowned our sorrows, as they say. But I loved it. I overindulged on that, and I didn't feel a thing, and it worked for that, for numbing my emotions. So happy, sad, angry. I don't think I was angry a lot. I wouldn't have known anyway. I fabricated anger. I fabricated to scare people. I don't think I was angry that often. I didn't really have much to get angry about. I think anger is usually about loss of stuff or loss of face, and I had so little self-esteem or anything that I didn't really get angry that much. But I did sort of fabricate it or engineer it that it looked like I was angry so I could get what I wanted. Scared. So that was the last one. I was scared a lot. I didn't know why I was scared or what I was scared of, but I was scared, full of fear, full of inadequacy, and drinking, like in the other emotions, the four main categories: happy, sad, angry, scared. It did a job. It did a job for me. Although I didn't actually know what was going on. I had no internal locus or locum of control. I don't know what that is. I was just like a cork bobbing in the sea, being bounced around, and I had no control over my life. It was all luck, and usually bad luck, really. So I had no agency within my own existence. And when I put the drink down, I had all these multitude of emotions that I had I didn't even know how to identify them. So I was told by an old Irishman to go back to basics, to be aware of when I felt angry, or I felt resentful, or I felt happy. I didn't know what made me happy. I only thought being pissed made me happy. I didn't know what actually made me happy, what made me fearful, what made me angry, and I started, with the stickers that the kids get at school, with the smiley face and the sad face and the angry face and the scared face. I started sort of mentally putting a little sticker on. This is how I feel today. And I said I didn't feel anger. I felt angry every day. Every single day I woke up angry, and it was usually about someone looking down the nose at me, belittling me and taking the piss out of me for being such a just a blob, I'll say, just an underachieving. I never actually did much or wanted to do much, and I was, you're characterised by what you do, and I didn't do anything. And I used to dread the word. I remember I went to a wedding a couple of months sober, and I was very slim. I looked like I'd been on smack for a while, but I'd not. But I was thin because I was sort of very paranoid, and I sort of trained really hard and worked really hard for God knows what reason. But I was this wired person, compared to now. I'm sort of well laid back compared to what I was, but I was this wired little fella. And I remember sat at this wedding, and it was in Bowden, and it was quite posh, and it's a nice wedding, and I didn't drive, and Joanne wasn't. She was drinking. She doesn't drink a lot, but at a wedding, she liked to have a glass of champagne or something like that. So from the church to the meal, the wedding venue, it was a couple of miles, and the couple who we were sat next to said, apparently we're taking you in our Volvo. Smashing. And we were sat next to him at the meal, and the lady, she was quite middle class from Altrincham, she said, it's just conversation, this, right? And this is what normal people do in conversation. She said, and what do you do, John? And I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me, because it was the worst question you could have asked me, because I didn't know what I did. At the time I was working as a labourer, but I didn't see myself as that, and I was aspiring to go to college and do my GCSEs again and get back into something else. So I said, I'm going to go to college and return into education. So she said, oh, that's interesting. Why? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to work with alcoholics and help them to get sober. And she said, if you don't mind me sort of being a little brutally honest, I think you're not confident enough. You're a little too anxious to do that job. I went, oh really? And I got up and I fast walked out. I didn't run, but I walked out fast to the reception where there was a payphone. It was a long time ago, so we didn't have mobiles and stuff. So I had a pocket full of 10p pieces so I could phone my sponsor. So I phoned my sponsor and I said, I was nearly crying. I said, this woman said that, I wasn't fit to be a counsellor, and she's right. And my sponsor said, well, do you know what? Maybe she is. But after you've done the training and after you've learned, maybe you'll be okay. But just for today, you're not the finished article. But don't give up because someone says that to you. But I remember feeling very hypersensitive and weird for several years, really. I had to grow into this skin, into the person that I wanted to be, and that took a lot of changing, a lot of work, and eventually I stayed in college for years and years and years, and I got my diploma. I got a diploma in counselling. Oh well, I never practiced, but I did a diploma in social work as well after, sort of, and then I did a master's, a MA in social work, and then I did an MSc in public health management, and there's a lot of growing and a lot of education. There's a lot of work that sort of went in, and you become the person. You become the job sometimes. You do a job for a certain amount of time. There's a book, Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, and I forgot the name of the author. It's a Jewish sort of psychiatrist. It's a good book, but he was sort of saying he was a junior doctor, and his dad had been a doctor, and this nurse said, we'll say Dr. Goldberg or something, Dr. Goldberg, and he looked around thinking his dad was on the ward. They couldn't be speaking to him, but they were, and he didn't know what he was doing, and a lot of these nurses helped him out because he didn't know what he was doing. He had the white coat and a stethoscope, but that was it. He didn't know how to be a doctor. He'd not yet been trained enough to feel to his bones that he was a doctor, so he felt like he was faking it. But after a few years, he felt okay being sort of called a doctor, and he said he moved on to other stuff, and this process of growth is you feel awkward, anxious and fraudulent, then you become sort of a little bit more at ease, then you become a master of the subject, and then you become frustrated and bored and want to move on. And that was his pattern, which he sort of did every 7 or 8 years. He sort of, but it was always the first couple of years was always frustrating and scary, and he felt like a fraud, and that's how I felt not drinking. I felt like a fraud, and that's how I felt when I got my first job, and that's when I felt when I got my second job, and that's what life is like. It's that constant feeling of I'm not up to this. You get to the point where you are actually up to it, and then you start getting bored and frustrated with it, so you move on to something else and set the process going again. And I've become comfortable-ish sort of know it's coming, and I know it's not the end of the world. So I've been through that process a few times over the years. And when I was young, someone said to me something like, when you were young, you had an excuse for being weird, but what's your excuse now? And I don't have any. I don't have any other than I feel, new stuff, new life. I feel weird, but wonderful at the same time. And I know that these feelings are going to change, and they change the more work I do to master the role that I'm playing, the better I feel. So this public speaking is something that I can remember the first time I did public speaking event. I did it in it wasn't the first time. The first time was terrible. The second time was worse, because I'd never learned anything from the first time, and I was terrified. And it was in front of a group of, it was about 400 or 500 nurses and doctors. It was a local authority based convention day sort of training in Tameside, and I thought it'd be funny to say, Basil Fawlty says, whatever you do, don't mention the war. In my head, I was singing, whatever you do, don't mention Harold Shipman, because it was all doctors and nurses from Tameside and stuff like that. Anyway, first thing that came out of my mouth is, welcome to Tameside, the world capital for serial killers. And I thought, I don't know. I thought that would be funny, but they weren't laughing. It was terrible. And it went from bad to worse. I was tremendously awkward and anxious and ill-prepared for public speaking. And I did this ridiculous... the PowerPoint didn't work, and even if it had, it wasn't very good. And the recovery, I was supposedly an expert in recovery, and I didn't do us any favours. I didn't do the recovery movement any favours, but I got better. It was. But unfortunately, in that world, you don't get many chances. You don't get many chances to be up there, public speaking and doing stuff. I got better, got a little bit better. And this is where you can practice. You need a story. Well, what I found is, and what I'm working on is a sort of narrative now. People who understand their illness, who can tell someone else about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. If they can understand it themselves, and they can describe it, explain it to somebody else, that's a good defence against the first drink. And you really only learn that by doing it, by helping someone else and explaining the steps to someone else. And that becomes it says in the book, armed with the facts. Once you're armed with the facts, you've got a defence. It isn't some, which I've found a lot over the years. People come to me expecting to have some tremendous spiritual or emotional upheaval. They expect some piece of Freudian or Jungian sort of psychoanalysis to change their lives completely, and sometimes it does, but it isn't what sustains recovery, and it isn't really, you can do that bit of work and get honest for the first time in your life and that feels great. It feels great, and if it's safe, it feels good. But the solution, chapter 2, there is a solution. If you read it, it's written out of context. It's written out of context in a big book, but there is a solution. It's just a number of stories of one alcoholic helping another alcoholic, and that is the solution. So, as Dr. Bob said, let's not louse this up with Freudian complexes. Who amongst us hasn't benefited from an old boy putting their arm around us and saying it's going to be all right? Let's do that. I wish you well, young people, and I hope you grow up like I did. My sponsor, I always say this, my sponsor said to me, "You're like a child, you're immature, you need to grow up." And I said, "You need to grow up, you poo-poo wee-wee face." I didn't say that, but that's what I wanted to say. Anyway, thanks for letting me talk, and I'll see you in August.